In 1953, an 18-year-old apprentice plumber was working alone in the cellar of a medieval building in York when he heard a trumpet sound coming from inside the wall. Seconds later, a Roman soldier on horseback emerged through the stone, followed by a full column of legionaries marching in formation. The young man could see them clearly, their armor, their weapons, their faces, but he could only see them from the knees up. They appeared to be walking on a surface below the cellar floor. Decades later, archaeologists excavated beneath the building and found the original Roman road. It sat exactly at the level where the soldiers' feet would have been. York did not just have a ghost story. It had a ghost story that archaeology confirmed. And that is barely the beginning. Number 10. York has a street called Whip-Ma-Whop-Ma-Gate. It is one of the shortest streets in Britain, but it has one of the longest names of any street in the country. The name is thought to come from a medieval punishment site, a place where public whippings were carried out, which tells you something about the kind of city York has always been. Even the street names carry violence in them. Today it is a short, easily missed lane near the Shambles that most tourists walk past without a second look. But if you stop and read the sign, you are standing on a spot where people were publicly beaten as a form of justice. And the city liked the name so much, it kept it for 800 years. Number 9. Scattered across York's rooftops, ledges, and building facades, there are cat statues. Dozens of them are placed at various heights, watching the streets below. The tradition goes back roughly 2 centuries, and the original purpose was grimly practical. During outbreaks of plague, cats were associated with keeping rats away, and stone or carved cats were placed on buildings as a kind of symbolic pest control, a folk remedy turned into permanent architecture. Most people walking through York never look up far enough to notice them. Today, hunting for the cats has become an unofficial urban treasure hunt, with visitors trying to spot as many as they can across the city centre. But the origin is pure superstition born from fear. York was so afraid of plague that it decorated its buildings with stone predators and left them there permanently. The cats are still watching. Number 8. You have probably heard of the Roman Bath pub on St. Sampson's Square. It is a popular spot in central York, busy most evenings, nothing unusual from the outside. But beneath the floor of the pub sit the remains of an actual Roman bathhouse, a functioning bathing complex from the period when York was the Roman fortress city of Eboracum. You can go downstairs and see the excavated foundations, the heating system remnants, and the layout of rooms where Roman soldiers and officials bathed nearly 2,000 years ago. Then you walk back upstairs, order a pint, and sit directly above it. There are very few places in England where the gap between modern life and ancient civilization is that thin. One floor separates your drink from a room where a centurion once washed off the dust of a northern English garrison. York does not bury its history. It builds pubs on top of it. Number 7. You already know the Shambles. You have seen photos of the narrow medieval street with its leaning timber frame buildings almost touching overhead. It is one of the most photographed streets in England, regularly compared to Diagon Alley. But the Shambles you see today has been cleaned up beyond recognition. In its original form, this street was a tunnel of raw meat. The Shambles was lined with butcher shops. The upper floors of the buildings jutted out so far over the street that they blocked almost all direct sunlight, creating a permanently shaded corridor. This was deliberate. Meat was hung and displayed outside the shop fronts in the cool darkness, keeping it from spoiling in the heat. Running down the center of the street was an open gutter designed to carry away the blood from the day's slaughter. The cobbles were slick with it. The smell was constant. The Shambles was not a charming medieval lane, It was a dark, narrow channel of animal carcasses and running blood, and the buildings were designed specifically to keep it that way. Next time someone shows you a pretty photo of it, remember what that street was built for. Number 6. York was one of the great chocolate-making cities of Britain, and the industry did not just employ people. It physically reshaped the city. Rowntree's and Terry's, two of the biggest names in British confectionery, ran enormous factories in York for generations. Rowntree's alone employed thousands of workers and produced brands that are still sold worldwide today. But the impact went far beyond the factory floor. The Quaker families who owned these businesses built model villages and housing estates for their workers, creating entire residential districts designed around the factories. Streets, parks, schools, and community buildings were all planned and constructed by the chocolate companies. Walk through certain neighborhoods of York today, and you are walking through a landscape that was shaped by the chocolate industry. The houses were built for chocolate workers. The streets were laid to serve chocolate factories. Entire parts of the city exist because of cocoa, sugar, and the Quaker belief that workers deserved decent housing. York's reputation is medieval walls and Viking history, but huge sections of the modern city were quietly designed by chocolate manufacturers. Number 5. In the year 306 AD, something happened in York that reshaped the entire Western world. Constantine the Great, one of the most significant figures in all of Roman history, was proclaimed emperor at the Roman fortress of Eboracum, which is what York was called under Roman rule. His father, Emperor Constantius, died in York, and the troops stationed in there declared Constantine his successor on the spot. He went on to become the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity, to legalize the faith across the empire, and to found Constantinople, the city that would become the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire for over 1,000 years. York was not a backwater posting, it was a major imperial city. 3 Roman emperors spent significant time here, governing sections of the empire from northern England. The idea that a small English city played a direct role in the rise of Christianity as a state religion and the founding of one of the greatest cities in history is the kind of fact that makes you look at York completely differently. This was not just a fortress town. This was a place where the future of Western civilization was decided. 5 facts in, and York has already given you plague cats, a meat tunnel, a Roman bathhouse under a pub, and the emperor who changed the world. Subscribe because the second half is where York gets genuinely dark. Number 4. York's modern street layout is not medieval, it is Roman. Large sections of the city centre still follow the outline of the Roman fortress that was built here nearly 2,000 years ago. The roads, the corners, the basic grid beneath the winding medieval lanes, all of it maps back to the original Roman military plan. And directly beneath York Minster, the city's most famous building, sit the remains of the Roman fortress headquarters, the Principia, the nerve centre of Roman military command in northern Britain. Excavations under the Minster have revealed layer after layer of history stacked on exactly the same spot. Roman fortress headquarters at the bottom, Anglo-Saxon activity above that. Then the Norman cathedral foundations. Then the Gothic Minster that stands today. 2,000 years of power built on the same patch of ground, each generation constructing directly on top of the last. York is not a city that replaced its past. It is a city that paved over it and kept walking in the same direction. Number 3. In March 1190, a mob descended on York's Jewish community. Around 150 Jewish men, women and children facing violence and persecution fled to the royal castle at the site that is now Clifford's Tower. Trapped inside with no possibility of rescue, many chose to take their own lives rather than face the crowd. Those who survived the mass suicide and came out hoping for mercy were killed. It was one of the worst acts of anti-Semitic violence in English history, and it happened in the center of York. The site is still commemorated today, and visitors can see a plaque at Clifford's tower marking what took place. But the story does not end with the history books. A legend has persisted for centuries that the stones of Clifford's tower turned red after the massacre, stained by the blood of those who died. The scientific explanation is iron oxide in the sandstone. But geologists have noted that stone from the same quarry used elsewhere does not show the same reddish discoloration. And nobody has fully explained why the effect is so pronounced at this particular site. The legend survives because the science has not quite killed it. And then there are the daffodils. Every spring, a ring of daffodils blooms around the base of Clifford's tower, planted deliberately in the shape of a six-pointed Star of David. It is a living memorial that returns year after year, marking the spot where 150 people died over 800 years ago. The stones may or may not carry their blood, but the flowers remember them. Number 2. In 1953, an 18-year-old apprentice plumber named Harry Martindale was working in the cellar of the Treasurer's House, a medieval building near York Minster. He was alone, installing a heating system, when he heard the sound of a trumpet coming from inside the solid stone wall. Then, a figure on horseback emerged through the wall, followed by a column of Roman soldiers marching in full military formation. Martindale described them in detail. He could see their armor, their round shields, their weapons, and their tired, mud-spattered faces. But there was one detail that made no sense at the time. He could only see the soldiers from the knees up. They appeared to be walking on a surface that was lower than the cellar floor, as if the ground they marched on did not match the ground Martindale was standing on. Martindale fled the cellar, white-faced, and his account was dismissed by many as imagination or stress. Years later, archaeologists excavating beneath the treasurer's house found the original Roman road. It ran at a level approximately 18 inches below the modern cellar floor, exactly where the soldiers' feet would have been. Every detail of the sighting matched. The soldiers were not floating, they were walking on their road. It remains one of the most documented and archaeologically supported ghost sightings in British history. York has hundreds of reported hauntings, but this is the one that even skeptics struggle to dismiss, because the physical evidence arrived decades after the witness account and confirmed it. Number 1. York has over 500 regularly reported ghosts. That is not a rough estimate or a piece of marketing. Paranormal researchers and local historians have catalogued more than 500 distinct apparitions, hauntings, and unexplained events across the city. It is consistently ranked as the most haunted city in Europe. But here is what makes York different from every other city that claims to be haunted. York does not just happen to have ghosts. York has spent centuries deliberately building an identity where history and folklore are impossible to separate. The ghost tours are not an afterthought. They are a fiercely competitive industry, with multiple companies running nightly walks, each claiming access to the most authentic and disturbing stories. Writers, tour guides, and local historians freely mix documented events like the 1190 massacre with unverified legends, and the city does nothing to correct the blur. It leans into it. Think about what that means. York has a Roman ghost sighting that archaeology confirmed. It has massacre stones that science cannot fully explain. It has memorial daffodils that bloom in the shape of a Star of David every spring. It has a street that was designed as a dark tunnel of butchered meat. It has a pub built on top of a Roman bathhouse. And beneath all of it, the city is still following a street plan that Roman engineers drew 2,000 years ago. York is not haunted by accident. It is haunted because it has earned it. 2,000 years of conquest, massacre, plague, empire, and industry, stacked layer upon layer on the same ground, with every generation building directly on top of the bones of the last. Most cities try to move past their history. York turned its history into the entire point. If this changed the way you see York, subscribe for more stories about places that are stranger than anyone realizes. If you want to see which other English city has been hiding its real story, that video is on screen now.